Hey everyone, before we get into today's story, I just wanted to take a minute to talk about chilling. Chilling has been making waves in the horror community as the home of horror. Chilling has over 500 creepypastas, scary stories, and true crime, all to choose from, and they're all ad-free. New content is constantly being added, along with new narrators reading your favorite spooky stories. I've been on board on Chilling for a while now, and there's also many other familiar narrators from the community. My favorite feature from Chilling is their one-of-a-kind background ambient menu, which lets you choose the ambience that is perfect for you. I also always use their sleep timer to shut things down because I often listen to stories when I fall asleep. To get started with Chilling, give their free trial a try to test things out, and if you like it, it's only $2.99 a month after that. All the necessary links to join will be linked below in the description. Thanks again to Chilling for having me be a part of things. The air was cool, crisp enough to necessitate a jacket, but not cold enough to warrant staying inside. I wanted to go out, to walk around in the open air, to breathe in the bracing freshness of it. After a breakup with my girlfriend of 2 years, I had been bored and lonely, and while I wasn't really ready to interact with people, I did want to be around them, felt that I could find company in their proximity. So, I put on a rather loose and somewhat antiquated jacket, inherited from my fatally adventurous grandfather, and I headed out. Ignoring the pathways that led toward town, I instead ventured in the direction of the country, wanting to be as near as possible to the plains, fields, and the natural, humbling openness of rural life. There are still homes and homesteads abound, and I knew that just seeing them in the distance or passing peacefully by them would be enough to satisfy my small desire of human availability. The sky had been grayed by some earlier storm, and was in the dismally gradual process of clearing up. The clouds, plump and slow-moving, occluded the light of a burgeoning sun, and the resultant atmosphere was partly gloomy, partly promising of a bountifully lit afternoon. I paid no real attention to the sky's progress, satisfied to allow it to deepen in its gloom or clear up completely. I decided on a seemingly sourceless whim to leave the side of the road and head into a far-spanning field, a space between two far-flung properties. The grass was still wet, the soil underneath soft, but I was able to tread it easily, without anything clinging to my shoes. I don't remember going very far before it happened. I couldn't have walked for more than 20 or 30 yards, no more than half a mile from the road. The sky, in a shockingly sudden atmospheric shift, blackened, the clouds becoming pitch-black veils, hovering shadows amidst some void expanse. The sun's light was instantly snuffed out, and if you would have told me that the celestial body had been wholly obliterated or removed from its position in space, I would have probably believed you. The sudden totality of darkness was that jarring, that inexplicable. For a terrifying moment, I was blind, sight utterly taken from me. And then I saw it. A single flash which illuminated the countryside in a deeply but inexpressibly unsettling manner. An uncanny spark of almost supernatural activity. After a moment, another followed, and then another, and the sounds of their explosive violence had reached me, and I finally realized that I was caught in the middle of a thunderstorm. Hail came moments later, small jagged chunks of crystal that harmlessly bounced off my head, covered with a baseball cap and jacketed shoulders. Some crystals were larger than others and therefore more dangerous, But I didn't pay any attention to these, being so wholly captivated by the thunderstorm, the volatility of the coming chaos. Breathlessly, I watched those sparks suddenly arc, as if further galvanized by some engine amidst the heart of the storm, and beheld a dizzying, terrifying showcase of nature's raw power. The lightning coursed through the sky like a pendulum, arcing back and forth, drawing closer to the earth each time, in a hungry search of something with which to make contact. The air, electrically charged, smelled of burnt earth and volcanic winds. I don't remember ever thinking, "You should run." The phenomena above were so stupefying, so existentially humbling, that I was as fixed to that spot as a tree or a signpost. And it was this status as a fixture, the sole object in that field, that brought to me the searing fury of that storm. I saw a blossoming of light, as of some solar eruption, and then felt with my entire body the passage of an immense electric charge. I was saved from utter destruction by the millions of electric volts thanks to my grandfather's jacket. Had I been wearing my usual leather jacket, or anything more restricting, I probably would have been cooked alive in my clothing during the flash evaporation of my body's sweat. The lightning strike was still unsupportably powerful, and I was knocked unconscious immediately. And upon waking, I found myself lying several feet from where I had been standing. There was a curious pattern of burning material across my torso, as if the lightning had upon contact wrapped itself around me like a coil of molten chains. My grandfather's coat was ruined, and my shoes strangely were smoking. When I took them off, I saw that these soles were black, irreparably charred. Feeling beneath my smoldering clothing, I found my skin unusually hot to the touch, but not badly damaged. I was most concerned by my inability to hear in my left ear. Above me, hidden by the now tempestuous darkness, thunder reverberated amidst the darkly fulsome clouds, and I realized that I could only hear its rage through my right ear. The partial deafness was also accompanied by an inability to properly focus on one spot for too long, as if sight was something to be achieved through effort, and not naturally granted. Panic set in at the obvious neurological damage, and I tried to stand but found that I couldn't feel or move my legs. Debilitated, terrified, with panic steadily mounting, I tried to think of what to do. I knew that calling out would be utterly pointless, the two nearest homes being miles away, and the road having been untraveled all morning. I also felt with a superstitious sensitivity that the sky was somehow sentient, and it would hurl its fury at me again if I gave evidence that I had survived its first volley. And so I kept quiet and sat there helplessly, while the firmament boiled blackly above me. I think I had been on the verge of passing out when she appeared, wreathed in that cosmic light, which was somehow both comforting and horrifying in its effulgence. She was tall, inhumanly tall, and I remember cowering even lower to the ground, practically coming to rest on my back, when I finally made out the immensity of her stature. Standing at around 12 feet, she loomed formidably over me, and I thank that infernal lightning strike for inhibiting my capacity for sight, because I'm sure that I would have lost my mind had I been able to see certain other, only implied aspects of her overall appearance. Seemingly naked, with immaculately toned muscles wrapped tautly in ivory flesh, she knelt over me and wrapped me up in her powerful arms. She was effortlessly lifted from the ground and held against her bosom like a straw doll in a child's embrace, or a child in a mother's. Cradled so, I was carried for some time across the field, while the sky voiced its immemorial ire, and I saw other forms, other giants, going every which way around us. These two were veiled, enshrouded, or otherwise armored by an ultra-mundane light, with pale and beautifully unblemished skin beneath. They paid no attention to us, and went about their business with a slow, dance-like grace, as if enchanted by some communal dream. It didn't occur to me to try and communicate with my savior. I had been so shaken by the lightning strike, and was so enraptured by the subsequent salvation, that my mind could only manage to direct me to silently observe and marvel at the sights. Apparently reaching our destination, I was set down on the damp grass again, and saw beyond the shimmering form of the giant woman a sky slightly less perilous. The clouds were still bloated and dark, but there was no electrical activity to be seen. The thunder was something heard off in the distance. The hail fell infrequently, innocuously. My savior smiled, and my body was filled with a restoring warmth, even as my heart was seized by dread at the sight of her more than monstrous maw, and the 6 eerily lustrous eyes above it. It was the face of something that had never been human, and would never truly understand human nature and our capacity for fear. A being of an entirely different mold. Even her hair, which fell goldenly past her bare shoulders, seemed somehow unwholesomely alien to my human sensibilities. I was distracted from potentially discovering some other inspiration of horror in her appearance by the return of feeling to my legs, sound to my ear, and the steadying of my eyesight. I blinked, wriggled my toes in my half-burnt socks, and turned my left ear toward the booming cannon shots of the thunder behind me, and I was filled with an indescribable joy. My towering guardian, seeing me restored, and then turning her attention to the sky, and mine was brought there as well, by the sound of a great roaring. This noise was not the concussive, darkly echoic sound of atmospheric violence, but a howl of bestial life. There was a sentience behind it, however feral. A collection of clouds above were suddenly lit up, and I saw highlighted in their center a shadowy form, dragon-like and massive, with broad black wings, and a segmented tail the length of its body. And then, like a fast-turning searchlight, the scope of illumination was transferred from the great beast and came trailing downward. And I realized with a heart-sinking sureness that the light was not something born of the storm, and had just been hurled landward by the dragon. And sure enough, that searing javelin came shooting out of the heavens, streaking whitely, and I cried out like an animal caught in the snare of a hunter. But without hesitation or any suggestions of fear, my stoic guardian reached up and caught the bolt in her hand, and with her seemingly empyrean power, reconstituted it, giving it the same spectral tinge and heavenly nature as her own cloak of light. And then, with little time spent visibly charting the flight path of the winged fiend, she hurled the bolt back at it. The brilliantly golden spear spent perhaps half a second in the air before striking the cloud-enshrouded dragon, and I watched, awestruck, as it plummeted from its cloud enclosure. And as if to prevent some calamitous result of its contact with land, more bolts, hundreds of them, went soaring skyward, thrown by those other giants who we had quietly passed. They all struck the clipped beast with a sky-shaking simultaneity, and the thing exploded completely, becoming a haze of twinkling particles. Its disintegration then had a wondrous effect on the sky, as if the heart of that foul storm had been destroyed. The preternaturally darkened sky was then relieved of its gloom. The storm's cessation was as sudden as its arrival. When these sun rays were again allowed to grace the earth, my protector turned to me once more and offered another one of her bizarrely, horrifically alien smiles. Not wanting to be rude, I offered one back, but quickly directed my gaze towards the now beautiful sky, so that her image was not thoroughly or irreversibly imprinted on my mind. And without ever having spoken a word, the woman, that Titanic, cryptically angelic being, then disappeared in a shimmer of light, leaving me alone in the field. I sat there for nearly an hour, marveling at the beauty of the sunlit country, and then left, returning to my home. I put my grandfather's scorched coat into a chest with other valuable things, as a permanent reminder of that momentous, terrifying, and providential experience, knowing that the burns in my body will in time heal.